What's up, everybody? It's winter. We're all out in the garage doing random work to our old project cars, but I'm gonna get into a different kind of project today. This is my race helmet. It is super boring. We're gonna try to make it less boring. Stick around. What's up, guys? I'm Jeremy. Welcome back to Cavalish Motorsports. Today, we're gonna get into a different kind of winter project. This is my off-brand, as cheap as I could possibly get it racing helmet. I bought this a few years ago because I just wanted to go racing. I wanted to make sure I had a Snell certified helmet, so this is an NHRA legal helmet, but that's kind of where the fun stops with it. It is as cheap and bland as you could possibly get and still pass all the safety requirements. And I've been kicking around the idea of spending some money and buying one of those like cool Simpson Bandit helmets. I've always liked those, but I've also seen on Instagram and TikTok, doom scrolling like we all do, some spray paint helmets that I've kind of seen called different things. I've seen it called cartoon, I've seen it called comic book. To me, it looks like cell shading, like a Borderlands video game or something like that. While I'm no great artist, I've just kind of looked at that and said, hey man, I think I can do that. So today, we're gonna give it a shot. Now, I don't mean for this to be a tutorial because I have never done this before. I have no idea what the results are gonna come out as. And at the end of the day, like I said, it's a cheap helmet, so if they suck, it's not that big a deal. I was thinking about buying a new one anyway. And if you don't like the results, you can always just paint over it in a solid color. Who cares? But while it's not a tutorial, I will show you all the stuff that I'm using because I did go out of my way to try to buy the stuff that I've seen the pros use in those Instagram videos. So we're not just going up to Home Depot and buying Rust-Oleum. We are using the same stuff that the real artists use. So first things first, I'm gonna take my visor off and mask the whole thing off, and then we'll get started. All right, so masking done. That was frustrating. I did try to take my time with this, and that's gonna end the high effort portion of this program. But I just spent, the better part of a half hour with the tape and a razor blade trying to really tuck it in under the edges. I'm a little bit concerned about it wanting to stick long term to the rubber, because that's what this is. This is a rubber seal that I've got it all stuck to. And then I even took some time, there's vents here, and I masked those off. I'm not worried about this stuff because this stuff's hidden by the visor anyway. I did try to take these out, but they were just kind of free spinning, and I don't want to take the whole inside of the helmet apart to try and figure it out. We are going to cover up our Snell rating image back here, but there's a sticker on the inside that still has it, so if tech wants to ask me about it and make me prove it, I just will have a sticker inside. Before we get started, a little kind of cheap painting tip. Rather than using isopropyl alcohol or a true paint prep, Glass Cleaner actually makes a pretty good alcohol-based wipe that you can wipe down with before you get started painting, because I did spend some time with a Scotch-Brite pad scuffing this all up. So we're gonna wipe it down, and then I'm gonna show you the paint that we're gonna use. Okay, now that we're all masked up and cleaned off, what are we gonna be painting this thing with? This is actually professional graffiti paint. I don't know if they go by MTN or Montana, but this is MTN 94. The 94, all their matte colors. With what we're going with here with the cell shading, we're gonna go with matte instead of gloss. They do have a gloss line as well. And aside from a white base primer that we have, I kind of went conservative with colors. A lot of these, if you do look around and look for comic book painted helmets or cars or whatever, they use really wild cyberpunky colors. Go from pink to teal, green, blue. I'm gonna stick to all shades of red. So what we've got here is I've got a blood red, a dark red, an orchid pink, and a white that I'm gonna throw in there a little bit. And then importantly, to do our paint lines afterward, that's gonna give us that comic book looking effect, we're gonna use POSCA paint markers. These are the PC 8K chisel tip variety. They make a few different ones. This is the one that seemed like most of the guys were using for what I'm doing here. They do make really big ones for they do whole cars with them, and they'll be like 16 millimeters wide. But these are chisel tips, so you can make a little light line or you can make a heavy line depending on how you hold the pen. Let's get started with our primer. We're all primered up here. We're getting ready to start our color. We're gonna do the whole thing red, and then we're gonna get kind of wild on top of that. There's something I wanna mention. If you watch any of the other videos of actual pro artists doing this stuff, the name of the game is kind of improvisation. So I have a plan here, but it's a very rough one. This is not like where you're masking things off and making super sharp straight lines or anything like that. It's kind of meant to not look perfect. So when you watch the guys do it, you'll see them make big wavy motions, and I'm just gonna kind of try to mimic that. So we're gonna paint the whole thing red, and then we're gonna come back with our other colors on top of it, let it dry overnight, and then tomorrow we'll come in with the paint marker. Sounds like a plan? Sounds like a plan. I do think I'm gonna go ahead and grab my respirator, even though this is just spray paint because I can smell it. I've got a fan running behind us right now, and I've got a window all the way over there in the corner open so we don't leach too much of the cold in, because like I said, we're right on the ragged edge of what's acceptable temperature-wise to paint in. But I don't want to be breathing in a ton of it, and we're gonna be putting a lot of coats down, so be safe. All right, ready for color here. What do we got? Rojo Sangre, blood red. Here we go. Light coats. Okay, our red base coat's down and it looks really good. This flat red looks cool. Like honestly, if it all goes sideways here, I might just go back to this and maybe put a couple stickers on it because this looks good. Now here's where things can get a little sideways on us. So this is where we're going to start to just streaking paint on here, and hopefully it looks cool at the end of the day. I'm gonna try to use the lines of the helmet a little bit just to give you an idea of what I'm kind of thinking here. We're going to put the color on the front of the mask, going around each side, and then once coming back down. And we're gonna layer that in there, and it's gonna kind of be all over the place, but then tomorrow, after this all dries, we'll use the paint markers, and that's when you kind of sharpen up the lines. And again, it's not meant to look perfect, it's meant to kind of look wild and video gamey. So let's just get started. Now, according to the tech sheets, it doesn't really matter overly much on this, as if you go from light to dark, it should cover more or less the same anyway. I have no idea how accurate that is, and I'm not really sure how I want to do this. Again, I've never done this before. We're going to start with the dark red and then put the pink in the middle. I'm honestly not sure if I'm going to use the white or not. Just kind of play that by ear, see how it goes. Here we go. So I decided I am going to do just a baby touch of white, just a little bit that maybe hopefully help add some contrast before I go in with the pink. Oh, and I forgot to tell you what my dark red color is. Rojo Bordeaux. Bordeaux red. And the white is Blanco. There's something I didn't mention earlier. I did buy a pack of caps. So I bought this off from Spray Planet, who sources this Montana 94 paint. They also have an option to buy like a starter pack of caps. There's a bunch of different ones. And I did a different one on that white. It was a little more splattery than I was expecting. But again, from what I've seen with some other stuff, that's actually not necessarily a bad thing. So actually when I get done with the pink, I might put that on the pink and then just lightly spritz in a little bit, so you get that kind of splatter effect with the pink as well. All right, last color. This is going to be our pink. Hopefully it's a pretty high contrast. I think it will be. This is Rosa Arqueda, Orchid Pink. Last one. Well, there you have it, done spray painting. I still have no idea how this is going to turn out. It doesn't look much different than what I've seen the pros do, like when they're at this step. There's fewer colors. A lot of times they'll do a lot more. We'll let it dry overnight. I'm going to throw another log on the fire so it has plenty of warmth and gets dry, and then we'll come out tomorrow at some point and we'll play with the paint pens, see what we can make happen. See you tomorrow. Okay, it's next day. We're getting ready to get started with the paint pens. Now, a word of warning here. As this helmet sat there all night and I looked at it, it had kind of bothered me because I let it I let the paint get out of hand a little bit. So I came out this morning and threw a little bit of extra paint on. Specifically, I tried to do a little bit of masking and have some streaks coming out of my top vents here. But in the process, I just found myself going spray, and then trying to fix and trying to fix and trying to fix. Like I said at the very beginning of this is kind of a thing where you have a rough plan and you just kind of go with it and whatever happens, happens. So yeah, it got a little more pink than I wanted it. I wanted a red helmet with pink highlights because it pops. I ended up with a little bit more pink than I needed, but you come out and try to fix it, even though I kind of got it where I'm a little happier with it now, I chased a lot. So just keep that in mind. Come up with your rough plan, come up with colors that you like. So even if you do end up with more of one than you meant to, it's not that big of a deal. And just roll with whatever you end up with. Because if you start chasing little details that you don't like, there's a good chance you're gonna find yourself in trouble. So just word of warning there if you do try something like this. Remember, this is never meant to be perfect. The whole style is not meant to be perfect. Trust the process, live with what you get. All right, let's rock and roll with these paint pens here. Once again, these are POSCA paint pens. They're Japanese, even the directions on them are in Japanese, but it's pretty straightforward. You shake them up and then you depress the tip a few times until paint starts flowing and then you just rock and roll. So you can get as wild as you want with this. I'm going in thinking I'm gonna try to kind of keep it simple and then just sort of see where it takes me. I kind of got this idea and thought maybe I can do that from a bunch of Instagram videos. Now there's a lot of guys who have done this, but the biggest one that I follow is a guy named Alex Bloch, B-L-O-C-H. I think he might be German. I'm honestly not sure. He never talks in his videos. Highly recommend you look him up on Instagram. His stuff's really cool. He does entire cars. I'm not gonna get nearly as wild and crazy as he does, but that's sort of what I'm modeling after to start with. Well, I'm done with the paint marker. I've got it as busy as I'm comfortable getting it, and I feel medium about it. My wife says it looks really good. I don't hate it, but I'm not completely in love with it either. But I'll tell you what, it is considerably less boring. That was the goal. Had a boring helmet, make it less boring. This is definitely less boring. Okay, so we are gonna take one more step. I was kind of on the fence about clearing it. I looked back at a lot of those other Instagram guys that I was watching do this on theirs, and they almost invariably clear it. It kind of defeats the purpose of using flat paint because I'm going to put gloss clear coat over it because I don't have any satin. And it looks like that's kind of what they were doing anyway, and it looks really good. So I'm going to grab some 2K clear coat, just the same thing that you put on a car that I've got sitting around. We're going to throw that on there. I hope it doesn't wrinkle any of this paint. That is always kind of questionable when you use a solvent-based automotive paint. on something like this, but again, that sort of seems like what the guys that I've been watching do. They clear it out of a gun. We'll find out. I took some cool pictures beforehand, so if it gets ruined, you know, we'll at least have the other pictures to fall back on. All right, here we go. I am using my big gun for this, even though there's not a lot of clear in there. I just like this gun better. I have a cheap purple Harbor Freight detail gun, but it just doesn't put out hardly any material. This puts out a lot more. So like yesterday, there's a fan blowing from behind the camera. Unlike yesterday, I have a window open closer and I've got a fan blowing exhaust out. So hopefully this doesn't fill up my garage too much with this stuff, and it's gonna be fast. Obviously this isn't a very big canvas here. So we're gonna put a couple coats on. We'll kind of make it a little bit thick. That way if we want to later, we can polish it down. Here we go. And that's that. We'll let it dry, we'll look at it in the morning. Back out with the helmet, it's nice and shiny. The 2K clear has been in the house curing for the last couple days because we are embroiled in, you know, the kind of one cold snap that central southern Indiana gets a year, where it's been a high of about 8 for the past 2 days. So I took it in the house to let it cure in a little bit warmer temperatures. And we're gonna take a shot at polishing it. Just in case this goes really poorly, I did take some good pictures of it beforehand, because I don't know how it looks on camera, but it does look less pink to me up close and in person now, so I like it more than I did when I first painted it. When it ended up a little more girly than I meant for it to, it's grown on me some. And the clear actually looks pretty good as is, but we're gonna polish it a little bit. Nothing too aggressive, just because number one, I would like to have let this cure a little bit more, but I'm also impatient. I just wanna get this done with. And two, this 2K clear that I put on it is a little bit old, so I don't know how that's gonna affect things. It seems like it's hardened up good, but you never know with products that are kind of past their expiration. Let's find out. So we're not gonna go nuts here because there are a lot of ridges here where the paint and clear tends to be thin. Same thing applies when you are on a car. I really should be using like a 2-inch pad on this, but 5 inches is what I've got, and 5 inches is what we're gonna use. Gonna make 2 passes, one with an orange pad, one with a white pad. The white one is finer. Using a Meguiar's polish for both. I do have a more aggressive compound laying around here somewhere that I would like to make the first pass with, but of course when I need it, I can't find it. So we're just gonna use polish for both passes. One pad just more aggressive than the other. All right, starting with our orange pad, which is kind of medium aggressiveness. I tend to make a mess every time when I do this. I'm gonna try not to sling this all over myself, but I probably will anyway. This is probably overkill, but you don't want it to go dry. Both buffing polishing pads are complete. Again, we're gonna treat this just like we were detailing a car because this is automotive clear coat on it. So we're gonna use a Meguiar's quick detail spray. I really like this stuff. I use it on the flat black hood on my Firebird all the time because after you wash it, it gets water spots and this gets it out. So we're gonna spray this on and then we're gonna put the visor and all that on so it looks like a real helmet again and see how it looks. Well, here we go, boys and girls. Project complete. And I still feel kind of medium about it. I'll be honest, when I was about halfway through, after I had just put the paint on, I thought I was gonna hate it. And I don't hate it, it's growing on me. It actually looks pretty cool. And everybody I've showed it to said they really like it. Whether they're being nice to me or not, I don't know. Just remember I had to go in there and fish out all my little maskings for my vents. Looks even better now. It is still a touch too pink for my liking. If I had to do it over, I would probably throw in some yellow and maybe some turquoise, stuff like that. Again, make it look even more neon cyberpunky. But I was trying to keep it simple and just stuck to, 3 colors, 4 if you count just a tiny bit of white. And you have to keep in mind that with a lot of projects like this, if it's the first time you've done something, you're immediately gonna think, boy, if I did this over, I could do it better. And that's exactly how I feel with this. I'm really tempted to buy a cheap helmet online on Marketplace or something like that and try again. I'm also really tempted to spend some money on a very plain Simpson Bandit helmet like I've wanted for a long time and try it with that. Because when you're doing this, you're really accentuating the lines that are already on the helmet, and that bandit helmet with the famous mask section in the middle. You can just do some really, really cool stuff with lines like that. That's going to do it. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Again, this was not meant to be a tutorial, but what I hope it does provide is encouragement. If you have something you don't like, take a chance. I mean, what's it hurt? You didn't care for it anyway. So make it personal, make it yours, and just go out there and get stuff done in your garage, because it is motivating. Now that I have my racing helmet finished, I can't wait to get over there and work on my gasser so it's ready to race when all the snow melts. We'll see you next time.